So, welcome back to the Fatherly Edition. Today we are with Ishwin Sing, that is a financial planning analyst from 4 tech company. He's based nowadays in Singapore, but he spent a lot of time in UK. So he has a 3 years old daughter. And I have a daughter as well, as you noticed. So again, welcome back to Fatherly Edition. Thank you, Ishwin, for being with us. And please feel free to briefly introduce yourself.
Hey Tommaso, thanks for the opportunity to have me on the podcast. It's my pleasure to be here. Yeah, sure. A little bit about myself. I think you already kind of summarized it. I've spent most of my life in Singapore. I was born here, brought up here, and then I also spent quite a bit, about 10 years, in the UK, both for university and work. And in terms of my career, I've mainly been in financial planning and analysis for tech firms. I also launched a startup of my own for a couple of years to try to scale that. Mainly that side of the career is in the finance industry. And then in terms of family life, I've been married for about 10 years now to a wonderful lady named Pooja, and 3 years ago and 3 years ago we had a beautiful daughter named Sahara. And just to cap things off, in February, so in a couple of months from now, we're expecting baby number 2. So things are gonna get more interesting then.
So that means you enjoy it. So
I'm loving being a dad. It's something I always wanted to do, and we left it a little bit late, but I'm glad we are finally there on the journey.
So, if you can summarize how different you were, let's say, 5 years ago, do you recognize any difference between you, if you look at the mirror 5 years ago, and who are you today?
One big difference is I put on a lot of weight. I've definitely got more of a dad bod now. I think it's strange because for me, like 3 things happened all at the same time in like January 2020. First, Sahara was born, and then second, I got a promotion at work at the same time, and then third, the pandemic started. I ended up working from home. So it was like three really big sort of life events that happened at the same time. And sometimes it's strange when I look back at now versus, like you say, 5 years ago. It's a bit hard to like pinpoint what has changed because so much has changed, right? So but I think on the whole, definitely changed for the better. I think working from home was a blessing in disguise, because I got to spend a lot of time with Sahara during the day. Random moments like during the day where maybe you might have a short half an hour break between meetings, or you're waiting for something to happen, or you have a little break for a coffee, and it's easy. You can just hang out with your daughter because you're at home. Whereas in the office, you wouldn't be able to do that. So for me, although a lot has changed in the last 5 years, I think on the whole things have changed for the better. But the one thing I need to work on is getting out more and being a bit more active. I think that's for me sort of a goal going forward.
Well, this was somehow the backside of the COVID, the pandemic. At the end of the day, everyone, for one reason or another, before we were scared, and then restriction, and then we spend a lot of time indoor, let's say. And of course now everyone wants to stay out, to spend much more time outside. But as you say, the good things, we have the chance to spend a lot of time with our kids.
Yeah, absolutely.
And this led maybe to our next question that I was about to ask you, the difference between your parents' generation and your generation. What is the main, if you notice any difference, any sort
You know,
of?
the strange thing for me, when I grew up, I grew up in a joint house, where it wasn't just me and my mom and dad. We lived in the same house with my grandparents, my aunt, cousins. So growing up for me, not just fatherhood, but I guess parenthood was maybe felt slightly different because there was so many more people involved in parenting, so and I think one of the big changes, I see now is, me and Pooja and Sahara, we live in our own apartment. My parents are nearby, but we're sort of a more nuclear family unit, and I think in one sense that makes the role of the father a little bit more, you need to be a little bit more involved, I think, right? Because when I think about me and Sahara, there isn't like a grandma in the house, there isn't an aunt in the house, there isn't other people in the house to sort of help. So I think definitely I'm a little bit more involved. But, at the same time, I think one of the things about being in Asia is it's quite common to have help at home, like, a nanny or a helper to live in. And I think that also changes the role of fatherhood, say, in Asia compared to, say, the UK, where, one of the conscious decisions we made was to sort of move back to Asia before starting a family, because I think having that help at home also makes a big difference. So in some ways, you can, I feel you can almost spend more quality time with your kid, because the time that, you need to work or get stuff done, you can focus on that fully because, you've got help at home, whether it's from a nanny or through Pooja, right, my wife. And then the time that I do spend with Sahara, it allows me to be, fully present and, just hang out with her and do the stuff, she wants to do, and, make sure she's happy, right? I think that's the biggest priority for me. So I think in a weird way, in terms of what changed in parenting for me, it's it's living more in a nuclear family compared to a combined family, and I think that situation will probably be slightly different for everyone.
I think so, but it's interesting what you point out, because I was discussing with another daddy, and they say, because you can compare your situation to any expat family. You're usually to be with your family, or at least nearby, when you live alone with your wife, even in the same city, but placed in your own apartment. So you don't have an extended network. So you need to manage yourself.
Yeah.
There is no much you can escape. So there's a good way that you can spend quality time, and sometimes much harder this time, sort of what we can call the freedom, the cost of freedom, right? Yeah, so it's interesting to point this. What do you see in, I want to ask, when you see even the other fathers around you, do you see anything that as father you struggle with? Do you think there's any preconception about what father's role should be nowadays? Your point of view, your experience.
Yeah, I think it's, the hard thing is, I think over the years, dads have been expected to, and rightfully so, right, play a more and more important and bigger role with raising the children, especially as most moms are working as well nowadays. When I think back to my own mom, at least when we were young kids, she didn't go to work, and she was at home and taking care of me and my brother, whereas my dad was, working a lot. And then as me and my brother grew up and went to like primary school, that's when my mom started working and helping my dad out in the family business. I think in terms of the preconceptions today, I think it's more around the dad having to be a lot more involved, and I think it's about trying to balance the time, right? Because otherwise, if you try and do too many things, you end up doing nothing really well.
Sure.
And I think that's like, when I think about one of the struggles, it's how do I balance work, family, friends, going out, right, which you could do a lot more say before you had a kid. Sleep, right? Sleep is important. You need to balance that as well. So I think that's, you gotta make some trade-offs, or some efficiencies, right? Like, how do you combine some of the things? And I think one of the nice ways we can do that is, I have some friends who have kids around Sahara's age, so that helps, where we can all hang out together, right? So it's a nice way to spend some time with Sahara, and it's a nice way to spend some time with my friends, and also a nice way to spend some time with their kids. So I think it's just trying to think of clever ways, really, to balance the 24 hours you have in a day.
Exactly.
And,
so you can
make the most of it. Yeah.
Exactly. Since we can't extend those 24 hours, right?
Yeah.
We
Absolutely.
must prioritize what is important. That you say you're lucky that you have old friends, maybe that even in your same city. So it's nice when you can catch up with your friends. They have already kids. That's a very nice thing for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the same when I'm in Bangkok. It's fun hanging out with you guys, right? Because you guys have got Eleni, who's around the same age as Sahara, and it's just a nice day out, So you just gotta plan a little bit better, and then that helps.
Yeah. So as well, always, it's a sort of time management as everything else that's bring out a lot of value. I think even the relation between old friends, and now we have friend, with kids. And then basically there's another layer of the story. And it's always interesting to see how each of us somehow planned or mold, this relation, and that we can always learn something from each other. And it's a good point that you point out. Thank you. I was about to ask you how you cope with the post-pandemic, but I think you answered already, because the fact that you try to balance the old things, that's what make the post-pandemic.
Yeah, I think in Singapore, at least, most things feel pretty much back to normal now, like pre-pandemic. So, in that sense, it's good. There's no more restrictions on number of people that can meet outside the house or anything like that. So, so it feels like life is pretty much back to normal, back to 2019, right?
Exactly. And one thing that you say is maybe different before we start recording was in the term of working, So 2 years was a sort of remote working. How you cope with working nowadays? You said before we start recording, we can just recap a bit.
Yeah, sure. So I think the one thing I'm quite grateful for is the company where I work. They have quite a flexible working policy. So if I want to work from home, I can. If I want to come to the office, I can. So it's really about what works best for me, my family situation, and how I want to manage my time. So I think in that way I'm lucky that I do a job where basically if I have a computer and an internet connection, I can work, right? So I think that's definitely one benefit of working in a job like this. So if I needed to say work from home a little bit in the morning, then maybe like walk Sahara to play school, and then drive into the office in the afternoon, or later in the morning, I can do that. So I definitely have that flexibility to work around my schedule, and just carve out my day in a way that best suits getting my work done, as well as making sure I spend enough time with the family. I think the other great thing about spending time with Sahara and Pooja is I'm also lucky that I work at a company where they have these things called week of rest. It's the company sort of shuts down pretty much globally from Christmas to New Year, so you get that time to switch off, and just spend quality time with the family. So in that sense, I'm really grateful, especially when I look back at the pandemic, and I have a lot of friends, and Pooja as well, right? She used to work in F&B. We have a lot of friends in hospitality where you don't have that luxury of just being able to work from anywhere with a computer and an internet connection. You need to be physically present, at a restaurant or at a shop or at a hotel or wherever you're working. And I think for those kind of jobs, it was a lot harder. And I think even going back now to post-pandemic, right? For them, people working those kind of jobs, there's no option to work from home or juggle your day around. If you need to be physically present at a certain place from time A to time B, then you need to be there. So in that sense, I'm grateful that I've got a role that allows me a bit of flexibility.
Good. This is good. And bring the idea then. But I think in some company more, some lesser, because as you say, not all the company can allow you just to have a computer and be on remote, depend of the role. But I think more and more company understands how much the staff need quality time, even out of the business. I mean, or in while you are doing your job, because if you spend time in your job just by having remote meeting, it's not the same as you met somebody in person. Let's say when you go back to the office, of course the conversation you can have one-to-one will be much deeper than any conversation you can have online, and that balance a bit the things between before and after, probably.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So I ask you one last question, because you already talk more or less about all the point. So the very complex question. So what do you think you learned so far from spending time with your daughter these first 3 years? What is the best things you learned, if you can summarize one things?
For me, the best thing I can learn from Sahara and her being a young person is curiosity. When you're a kid and as you're growing up, you're just so curious about everything. She's always asking, what is this? Who is that? Why is this? And for me, sometimes I feel as you grow up and as you become an adult and you know more and more things and you've done things once or twice, you start to take things for granted a bit and lose that sense of curiosity, that sense of seeing things in a different way, seeing things in a new light.
Right.
So, if you ask me what I've earned the most or learned the most from spending time with Sahara during the pandemic and even post-pandemic, it's to relight that spark of curiosity, where sometimes you just take a step back and ask, well, why is it like this? Why are we doing things like this? Or why are we doing things in a certain way? And it's interesting because I think there's a lot of applications to your work life to be curious and to ask that question why. Sometimes when you need to get stuff done so fast and meet deadlines, you just focus on the how to get stuff done so quickly, and sometimes you don't step back enough to kind of ask yourself why and be curious. Is this the best way to get this thing done, or do we even need to do this thing at all? Those kind of things.
Exactly.
So I'd say that's the best experience I've got. I love Sahara's why questions because it always gets me thinking.
Yeah, thank you for raise up those elements because I agree with you. So they are so spontaneous, no? That
absolutely.
Yeah, and that's right to be at that age so spontaneous. But we understand by looking at them how much we lose basically year after year, right? Because more we learn, more in terms of experience or job experience, life experience, and then as you say, we say that's granted. Of course, it's
you take it for granted. Absolutely, yes. It's always been this way, or that's why it is, or absolutely.
But having kids around, say, and as you notice, thanks to them, sometimes at this point now you say, but why have I done this in this way? They are not the expert on our job and your job or my job, but the fact they ask questions let you as well to rethink what you're doing. Not the way that maybe you did wrongly, but it's just a way to breathe moment before you move forward.
Exactly. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that curiosity is, that childlike curiosity is really, sometimes it's something you shouldn't lose. And I think as you grow older, you lose that, at least for me, I feel I lost a little bit of that curiosity. So yeah, I definitely appreciate learning that from Sahara. And when she grows older and she listens to this podcast, she'll, I'll have to say thank you to her when she understands more of it.
Fantastic. Thank you for being with us. This was I really appreciate your word and the spontaneity, say, of your answer, and how you engage, how you tell us, how you share, you share with us your experience. And let's say good luck for the upcoming challenge.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Tommaso, for starting this initiative, starting this podcast, having me on. It's a pleasure. And like I said, look forward to seeing you in person in Bangkok soon.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay, take care. Have a good evening. Bye.
See you. Bye. Bye.
Hi, thanks for listening, the Fatherly Edition. If you like what you've been hearing, please follow Tommaso Maggio on LinkedIn or subscribe to the Fatherly Edition podcast on Spotify, Apple